Hey everybody, welcome to this Periscope. My name's Ron Deal. We're going to be talking about how not to raise a monster, okay? Parenting young children. We'll get to that here in just a minute. If you're new to Periscope, we're glad to have you. Here's the way it works. A couple things you need to know. First of all, if you're on an iOS machine, just go ahead and swipe from the left, all right? Swipe right, and you'll see a little share button right there. Go ahead and hit share, and then you can share it to your Twitter account, or you can copy the link and you can post it to Facebook and let other people know about this. Tapping the screen, I see some hearts. Thank you very much for that. EJ Komodo, glad to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. Serta, is that it? And glad you're here. Tap the screen, that gives us some hearts, and that makes others able to find us. All right, the more hearts we have, the more visible we are. We'd love for other people to know about what it is that we're doing here. So, and then the chat box, if you're new to Periscope, you can just chat right there. Nice hearts, thank you for that, whoever that was. You can hit that little chat box and you can share a thought or a comment or an idea, and my trusty companion, Shannon, who's right over here, she's gonna be monitoring, look at that, she's all geared up, she's got all kinds of devices. She's gonna be monitoring your thoughts and comments as I'm talking, and so we'll be able to come back to those a little bit later. Again, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Ron Deal, and we're talking marriage and family and relationships on this Periscope. We do this live every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Central Time for a little lunch and learn, and we'll tell you more about that in the future. And then we do Periscopes throughout the week, just spontaneously as life happens. So again, we're glad that you're with us. If you don't mind, go ahead and tell me where you're from so we can kind of see who's tuning in today and where you're located. I'm in the Little Rock home office of FamilyLife. It's a great ministry, and we work with people all over the world. FamilyLife.com is where you can find us. So let's talk about this, all right? How not to raise a monster parenting young children. Recently, I was spent some time with some of my extended family, and they've got some youngins. And boy, was I reminded of what that was like. Nan and I have raised 3 children, and remember those days when it was so hard and so intense, right? When they're young and there's so much energy involved in managing your kids. And in the back of your mind, you're just thinking, okay, how do I not screw them up? How do I help them to grow up to be honest adults, right? So glad that you're thinking that, because that's what I'm thinking. That's the parent in us who's wanting to do right by our kids. And it's hard, right? It's intense, particularly when they're young. Richardson, Texas, glad to have you with us. Scott, nice. Hey, good to have you. And so I get it, right? And have you seen the Facebook video that's rolling around? The little kid who's running all over the skee ball. I don't know, he's at Chuck E. Cheese or something. There's no parent in sight. This kid's a holy terror, and everybody's trying to get him out of the way, and he's screaming at people, and one nice lady tries to pick him up and move him so her child can play skee ball, and he spits in her face. All right, you don't want that monster, right? And so what are you going to do so you don't end up with a monster? Well, here's some thoughts, all right, especially when they're really young, to kind of give some guidance to what's going on. First of all, say what you want, not what you don't want. All right, tell kids what you want, not what you don't want. You see here, there's a principle here. In other words, don't spill the milk. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's what you don't want. You want to tell them what you do want versus, consider this, hold that cup with 2 hands and walk slowly. See, that's a very different response, right? See, here's the principle. Psychologically, if you tell somebody not to do something, you can't not do it. All right, everybody watching me right now, do not think about a purple elephant. Guess what? You're thinking about a purple elephant. So if I say don't spill the milk, what I've just done to my child is I've increased the odds that they're going to spill the milk. Why is that? Because I've got them thinking about spilling. They weren't thinking about it before you said it. They were doing just fine. And now you got them thinking about spilling. And so their behavior tends to follow what we think about. This is a principle that's true in all of relationships. It's true with a 2-year-old. This is true with a 16-year-old. This is true with a 25-year-old. Tell them what you want. Tell them, guide them where you want them to go. Give them that sort of direction and instruction, not what you don't want them to do or think or be about. Number 2 suggestion is be specific, all right? Be specific as much as you can. To say to a child, okay, be careful, be careful. A child's walking down the steps, just learning how to walk. Be careful. Okay, that represents the intent of your heart. You do want them to be careful. You don't want them to fall and get hurt. But what does that mean to a child? It can mean a million things. What does be careful mean? They don't know what that means. So you have to be specific and then tell them what you want, right? So how different would it be to say, hold the rail and walk carefully, one step at a time. Hold that rail, walk one step at a time. See, here's what we're doing. The other thing that's, we're not only setting their mind to something that we want them to do and to be about, but we're giving them quick success. And as soon as they reach up and hold that rail, you go, that's it, one step at a time. Oh, I love the way you're doing that one step. Now we're celebrating the child's behavior. That's a positive reinforcement. That gets them in tune, that makes them smile, and all of a sudden my parent is a happy person in my life, and I'm happy because I'm getting rewarded for doing what they've asked me to do. This sets up all kinds of really good things. So the first suggestion is say what you want, not what you don't want. Number 2 is be specific. Be specific to what it is you want them to do. And then number 3 suggestion, in particular with young kids, is redirect them. Right? This is really true for the toddlers. By the way, I got good news and bad news when it comes to the terrible twos. Okay. The good news is it only lasts about 18 months. It generally starts around age 18 months all the way up to year 3, the terrible twos. Okay. The bad news is kids are subject to relapse at any given point in time. I hate to say it, usually around 15 or 16, they go back into the terrible twos. Such is life. Okay, so redirect. When you're trying to say no to this, make sure you have a yes to that. Let me say that again. If you have a no, you can't do this, you can't put the fork in the socket, all right? Make sure you have a yes to that. That's a redirect. Oftentimes we just say, no, you can't have this, you can't play with that, there's something sitting on it, it's fragile, you can't pick that up, I'm afraid you're going to drop it. No, you can't have that. Well, what can I have, right? It's even better to beat the no with a yes. Instead of saying no to that first, say, here, have this. Let me show you that. You can play over here instead of over there. You can hold this and interact with this. And here's a game that's made for you. Here's something that's made for Dad. So it's yes to this, and then you can do no to that. That's going to help a whole lot. And then finally, last suggestion is give choices. Whenever possible, give choices. Now, this is just part of the larger parenting plan. We are trying to work ourselves out of a job in parenting, all right? Do you condone hitting as punishment? We'll come back to that in just a minute. Give choices whenever you can. There's always an option for a child to have a choice, and notice that you're going to be the one setting the parameters for the choice. So even with really young children, right? Do you want to sit on your bottom or do you want to sit on your knees in that chair? What's given is that you're going to sit. They're standing. You don't want them to fall over. They can't be standing in the high chair. They can't be standing in the big boy chair, whatever it is. Do you want to sit on your knees? Do you want to sit on your bottom? You kind of create this illusion of options for them. But the fact is they're going to sit. But they get to choose something that gives them a little bit of power in the decision process, which helps kids find their way to cooperation and obedience. Whenever you can, create a choice. It's time to go. You know they're having fun. They're being with their friends. And you're thinking, there's no way they're going to want to leave this party and get in the car with me. So you give them a choice, right? Does it create instant happiness? No. But sometimes it does. It just creates cooperation. They're still going to be sad and disappointed about leaving the party, but you give them an alternative. Would you like to walk yourself, or would you like for me to carry you? Would you like to hold my hand, or do you want to swing on, get on my back? Would you like to do this? Would you like to carry that, or would you like for me to carry that? That's kind of an odd, but you still give them a choice. Find a way to give them a choice. Okay, so a quick little recap is say what you want, not what you don't want. Be specific as you possibly can to direct them towards success. Redirect them. If it's no this, then you better have a yes to that. And then give choices whenever possible. Okay, so let's get to some questions. Before I do, let me just remind you what you're doing right now. My name's Ron Deal. We're doing a Periscope, and we talk about marriage and family and relationships on this Periscope every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Central Time and spontaneously as life happens. So I'm glad that you're with us today, coming to you from FamilyLife. If you want to learn more about this particular ministry and marriage and family education programs, FamilyLife.com. Okay, hitting, that's come up a couple of times. I think one of the specific questions earlier was, am I getting this right, is hitting, do I condone that for punishment? Okay, well, no, I don't condone hitting. I might condone spanking. A real big difference. First of all, I think spanking should be reserved as a last resort. I think it is for a heart that is hard and rebellious, and everything else in the world has not worked. No difference at all. I understand. People get concerned about this sometimes, but there's a lot of control that goes into spanking in an appropriate way. So let me just kind of put some boundaries around it. 1, 2, or 3 little swats. Never more than that. Sit down and have a little conversation before the swats. By the way, that's far more painful for some kids than swats, right? And even then, you're explaining, and what you're doing is you're getting control of who you are and what you're doing, and the child understands the environment and what they did, and you're telling them and teaching them what we want you to do next time. But it's only for just kind of a hard, rebellious heart, in my mind. People who use spanking frequently are undoing themselves as parents. They're getting stuck in a corner where they just constantly swatting, the child's just running away. It's not useful. It should be a last resort, not something that you want to use all the time. There's a whole lot of tools in your toolbox before you would try to go to that. Okay, any other questions?
The other was, you might want to change the monster in the title. If you don't want to raise a monster, you probably shouldn't call them a monster.
Hey, good point. So somebody said, don't call them a monster. Right, exactly. Don't say that to their face. Don't let them know that you think that's who they are. That's true. What we're saying is you just don't want to end up with a child who runs all over the skee ball and ruins it for everybody else and won't listen to anybody and has no respect for authority, in particular your authority. Because a child doesn't respect authority, my goodness, they're going to have all kinds of problems in their life. If I got into a disagreement, would I spank the adult? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because I'm not their parent. And they're not 2 or 3 years old. By the way, spanking has a time limit on it. I mean, I think it's useful and helpful at a certain season of a child's life. But again, last resort, under control, just a couple of swats, just enough to get their attention, only if their heart is just continuing to be hard to everything else. I had one of my 3 kids, the spanking wasn't helpful at all. And that's the other thing, is you got to run this through the lens of what gets this child's attention, right? And so timeout was more than enough. Just not being able to play with that toy was more than enough. So you got to be discerning about when, where, how, and even if it's a useful tool. Well, it's good to have you with us again. We're talking marriage, family, and relationships every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Central Time. You can share this still, even at this point. Go back and play it for 24 hours. Share it on your Twitter. Swipe right. See that little share button, or you can copy the link and then post it into your Facebook. We'd love and appreciate you doing that. Give us hearts whenever you get a chance. And to learn more about family and relationships, to learn more about events and conferences around the country and around the world, FamilyLife.com. It's good to have you with us. Thanks.